This presentation is about differentiating instructions. And quite honestly, differentiation is a key to success of all students. What do you need to know about differentiation? Well, do students have a choice in your classroom about how they're going to learn? Do you know your students, and can you, using a number of different tools, a number of different strategies, effectively produce lessons and activities that will help them learn? Is it possible for you to address the needs of students who already understand the information and who may be ready to move ahead? And is technology something that you can use in the process of teaching and learning that creates a better opportunity for all of your students? Well, there are a couple of things that a couple of videos that I'd like you to look at. These videos are from teachers, and so we're going to pause the presentation and look at these videos now.
Oh hey, long time no see. How are you doing? Excellent. I'm so happy that you stopped by. I can't wait for our discussion on differentiated instruction. I'm so excited, I'm gonna dance all the way inside. You might have some important questions about differentiated instruction. For example, what is differentiated instruction? Or you might be asking, how can I differentiate instruction to better meet the needs of my students? Let's begin by answering the question, what is differentiated instruction? According to Carol Ann Tomlinson, a teacher who differentiates instruction proactively plans and carries out varied approaches to content, process, and product in anticipation of and response to student differences in readiness, interest, and learning needs. Wow, that was a mouthful. Let's repeat that in a language we can all understand. Basically, in a differentiated classroom, the teacher creates different ways to learn the content and make sense of the content. The teacher also designs multiple ways students can create products to prove they have learned the content. Oftentimes, in a traditional classroom, the same content is taught through only one process, ending with the same product for everyone in the class. For example, in many classrooms today, students walk in through the door, sit in the chair, and listen to Mr. Boring lecture about how cell phones used to look like bricks. After the lecture, the students take a quiz and then leave. The next day, the same thing happens. Now, let's look into Mr. Awesome's classroom. First, his lesson probably wouldn't revolve around how cell phones used to look like bricks. He's probably concerned more with how technology has influenced our everyday lives. Mr. Awesome knows that his students learn differently. He also realizes that his students don't know exactly all the same things, so he assesses their knowledge. He now has an understanding of what his students know about how technology has influenced our everyday lives. He acknowledges that some students don't know what technology is, while other students could easily build their own computer. He will now use a variety of instructional strategies to match the readiness, talents, and interests of his students to the content, process, and product of the lesson. In the end, Mr. Awesome wins! He differentiated instruction to meet the varied needs and levels of his students. All of his students learned. Mr. Boring, well, Mr. Boring only won the Boring Teacher of the Year award. Differentiating instruction is not easy to do. It's difficult, but it's also imperative. It's important to remember that there's so much more to differentiated instruction than just a definition. It's a way of student achievement. So, it comes down to one question. Are you going to be Mr. Awesome or Mr. Boring?
All right, that was one teacher's opinion, so we're going to look at this next teacher's opinion. This is actually centered around kind of a vampire-ish looking.
Not good at all. I have such a diverse group of learners, and many of my students have individualized education plans and special needs. I don't know how to teach so that everyone is learning.
Well, that does sound challenging. Have you tried using differentiated instruction?
No. What is that?
Differentiated instruction is a way to go about teaching material, assessing students' progress, and motivating each child to learn. How do you teach all the diverse learners in your class now?
Well, they all have such different learning styles and they are all on such different levels. So, I plan an individualized lesson for each and every one of them based on what they can do.
Doesn't that get exhausting? Differentiated instruction is much more than individualized instruction. You definitely should make adaptations and accommodations to your lesson plan, keeping each learner in mind, but making 22 separate lesson plans isn't efficient.
You're right. It was exhausting. Maybe I should just group all the kids by ability and then teach each group one at a time to make it easier on myself.
No, that isn't good practice either. Differentiated instruction is more than homogeneous groupings. In fact, it is effective to make groups of mixed ability, so that the advanced students and the struggling students can learn from each other and help each other in the zone of proximal development.
That does sound smart. And once they're in their mixed ability groupings, and I can help the struggling kids feel smart by asking them easy questions, and make the advanced kids feel challenged by asking them hard questions.
Differentiated instruction is much more than a hierarchy of simple to complex questions. With differentiated instruction, every child will be able to answer any question you ask with the right support.
Wow, looks like I have a lot to learn about differentiated instruction.
Well, start by taking a look around this website. You will find some valuable information about universal design for learning, collaboration with teachers and families, strategies for both advanced and struggling learners, and links to a ton of great resources. Then, come into my classroom and I can show you differentiated instruction in practice.
Thanks, Karen. Good morning, Karen.
Hi.
Okay, so as we look at this, what is it now that you know about differentiated instruction? Take a moment just to think about this. And then, what can you do to differentiate the instruction in your classroom or in your future classroom? Differentiation is a practice that acknowledges that students learn differently and sometimes need different tools, different settings, and different approaches in order to be successful in their learning. What it does tell us, however, is that all students will learn the same concepts, will understand the same essential questions, and be able to experience the learning in a meaningful way. One of the people who was responsible for differentiated instruction in the research is Dr. Carol Tomlinson. And I'm going to show you one of the videos that she has about differentiated instruction.
A fairly common question among teachers who are beginning to consider differentiation to learn about it in a formal kind of way. Boy, there's a lot there. How do I get going? What do I do first? And I think the most honest answer to that is teachers are not any more alike than kids are. And some teachers get a big picture and they say, wow, see how I can change everything over the course of the next month. And I'm going to do this and then this, and it'll all fit together and it's wonderful. and other folks are looking for a very tiny little first step. I think what matters is that we start, not that we start in any particular way. There's an odd kind of thing with the classroom. I think we understand that Tiger Wood wasn't born with the golf club in his hand, hitting holes in one the first day he was out. He's become wonderful because he's practiced longer and harder than anybody else and brought his talent out that way. Somehow in teaching, we think we're supposed to get it all right next week, or get it all right the first day, and if we can't be wonderful, then we just sort of give it up and quit. And clearly that never helps us grow, and it'll never help our students. So what matters is that we start, not where we start. But having said that, I think a pretty good way to start slowly is to spend some time, a month, a marking period, just studying your students. Watch them more than you ever have before. Take some notes in a systematic way. Use sticky notes when you go around the classroom observing, and see what signals they give you about what they need. Or just start with pre-assessment. Develop a simple pre-assessment, but one that really aligns with what the students should know, understand, and be able to do. And give that pre-assessment to the students when the unit begins. You'll find they're all over the place. May not know what to do about that, but you'll have a little impetus to start thinking about it. And if we just pre-assessed in front of every unit for 2 or 3 or 4 units, I think we'd find ourselves naturally not so much saying there's this mysterious thing called differentiation. Where in the book does it tell me how to start? But I see students with this need, and here's a way I can get at it. Another thing teachers worry about with differentiation when they begin is it's supposed to be the most time-consuming thing in the world. I just don't know how I can possibly do anything with so many parts. And the truth is, there are many very small things you can do that make a great difference for students. Would make a huge difference for most of our kids if we built in time every day or two to sit down with a group of 5 or 6 kids for 10 minutes to pick their brains, see where they are, extend something, reteach something in a different way than the one that didn't work the day before. That one simple thing, which takes almost no planning time, could make a very big difference. It's not so hard sometimes to be able to say, you know what, I've got some kids who are stuck on this and some others who need some work here. There's a way I could assign 2 homework assignments. Many times our homework's not something we generate, it's in a book or something anyhow. And sometimes that would give kids a chance to patch potholes, to move ahead. So kind of a nice formula, I think, for thinking about starting, if you're serious about it, is to choose maybe 3 or 4 of those low preparation things, like meeting with small groups in the classroom, and use those regularly, every week. Use them. And then every marking period, develop one higher prep strategy, like a learning contract or a tiered lesson or a WAF assignment or something that you invent on your own. And if you did that for a full year, you'd have 3 or 4 low prep things that were absolutely secondary. You'd have 4 high quality, high prep things. And then you come in for year 2. Remember again, Tiger Wood didn't get it after the first year of practice. And so you take out the 3 or 4 low prep things you had and add 3 or 4 more low prep to that. Each marking period, pull out the one high prep thing from the time before and polish it a little bit and create one more high prep piece. Into that year, you've got 8 high prep things that are pretty good and 6 or 8 low prep things. If you did that for 5 years, you'd really have a repertoire, but more to the point, it would begin to feel natural to you, and it would not sink your ship. Teaching is really not a sprint, it's a marathon. And you can't sprint the whole 100 miles, you really have to kind of pace yourself. What we don't want to do is say, if I can't do it all perfectly, I just won't do anything.
In video 1, you got some information from teachers about differentiated instruction, what it is, what it isn't, maybe how difficult it is. And also in video 1, you heard from Dr. Carolyn Tomlinson about the need to proceed carefully, slowly, with differentiated instruction. So as you do it, you're creating a skill set for yourself and also a better learning opportunity for students. Not something that you can do quickly, not something that's done easily, but something that can be done. So I'd like you to watch the second video with her talking about additional things